So I'd say future skills, there needs to be tools that are needed to be evolved and developed to enable those skills to be taught in a way that meets people where they are. But we can't deny the fact that the world is competitive. People are keen for applying themselves in challenging environments. People want to work where they feel fulfilled. And that skill, unfortunately, we've seen it leave this country. One of my biggest concerns is seeing how very talented people go apply themselves elsewhere, despite this country investing in their education and their upskilling, their parents sacrificing a lot for them to do well. Hopefully, their parents would want them to do well for their country and for their ancestors, the land that they're born. But it happens that people go, you know what? I love this country. My mom has sent me to go study in the US. I've pretty much settled down here. I'll apply my skill here because I'm earning dollars. It's safer. There's all these things that work well here that don't in South Africa, where I'll get a, load shedding every now and then. But the skills of the future, because, if you look at these lists that they give out, you look at the top leaders of some of the biggest companies in the United States, it's mostly Indians. Indians are very clear about educating their people, and they're leading some of the biggest companies. I mean, people talk about Elon Musk, a few other South Africans there, but like, if you think about what makes a country prosperous, and I think Barack Obama put it nicely, a country that out-educates us today will outperform us tomorrow.
That's it.
So if you don't invest in getting the right skills, and I'll say this, and I'm sorry to say this, but our education system, our teachers need to change their mindset from making it about them and more about the children. If you make it about the children, you make it about the future, you make it about making them fit for purpose, you're making them resilient. Yes, you'll make them adaptable so they can be marketable to any other country they want to go to, but hopefully they stay and contribute that skill here. That's the key that we need to get right around the instrument way of teaching too.
And me and Stefan had this discussion in episode 4, actually the previous episode, where we spoke about the importance of a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't listen, I don't think, and not to say, let me not go there, but teachers are most probably the most important beings in the country to get us to a new generation and to a new mindset, because they've got so much power to actually either uplift a child or break that child, or, because most of the people that I know of, that's either, got some sort of, not to say not feeling good about themselves or lacking some confidence or something in that line. But most of that stuff comes out of either teachers not believing in children, saying that you cannot do it. We heard it the other day of a guy, senior, that he actually were pulled up in a rugby team, but he was a good rugby player. And the senior coach there just asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Coach, but I'm pulled up." And the coach asked him, "Listen, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've been pulled up." That's not a good thing. A teacher doesn't understand what impact they have towards that child, because in that moment, the coach said to him, "Listen, I don't believe in you."
Yeah.
That's wrong. And they don't realize the impact that they have. It's something stupid now, but they don't realize the impact that they have, and eternally. And for me, I think it all almost come together. And this thing of teaching in the home language is something that I didn't, or your mother tongue, is something that I actually didn't. It's cool that we're speaking about this, because think of, especially Stefan, when you, and I'm not sure if you studied obviously in English or Afrikaans. I think you can have both languages.
Yeah, listen, that's going to be a tough example because it's very tricky. Classes in Afrikaans, but textbooks were in English,
Okay,
so you actually sort of
that's a
blend.
that's a good example, because that's an issue. Because now constantly you need to apply, so you're learning, the formulas and
It does make it difficult.
It makes it difficult, because now you read something and a term. Now you need to go and see, yes, but what does this mean?
Yeah.
I don't have it's not the
Well,
same.
to be
It's
fair,
like
that
reading the
happened a lot.
Bible in Afrikaans and English. It's difficult. I just switched to go to English because the Afrikaans terminology is just throwing me off a little bit. So, and it's not to say, but you get my point. It's just constantly understanding. So that's switching. So, and listen, I don't know how that's going to work.
but on the educational system, right? Because I mean, this is, listen, to be fair, I think it's been a topic that's been discussed a lot, over the past X amount of years, right? And I mean, it's made headlines, and I mean, there's been a lot of aggravated people on this, right?
Yeah.
What makes this one tricky is I think everybody agrees that, listen, we need to sort this out.
Yes.
But
The fundamental question is, because I don't want to hammer on why are we here, right? Because I don't want to say that it's a moot point, but it doesn't necessarily, unless you have a different point of view, it doesn't necessarily solve for the problem. But how do we, in a really short period of time, solve for this educational challenge? You get what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
we, and I mean, leveraging this question on the quote, that you gave from Obama, I mean, that's powerful. That's really, really powerful. I don't know what the time frame is on that, whether it's a decade or 2 or 3 or maybe 5 years. But surely, if you think about the action of out educating, let's say another country, right? And outperforming them in the future.
Yeah.
That is something attached to that is hard work and commitment. That's how you out educate, right? It's not like there's, and again, more than willing to be wrong here, right? But it's not like there's something complicated to that. Like really put energy, action, intent, pure intent, right, behind education, and start actually driving that with the commitment to actually out educate other nations.
Yeah.
Question being, how do we do that? Do you think?
Yeah. Look, there's a few layers to this. Number one, the teachers that you're talking about, there's people that do teaching because it's a job, because they need money
Sure.
to feed their family. It's not a calling for some
about
people.
most of them.
Right? Probably, right? I think you might be right there. But you find people that are in the teaching profession that don't have the temperament, the personality, the patience, and the ability to connect with a child, a way a child needs to be built and nurtured and taught. So those people do more harm than good to a child, not just academically, but to their self-confidence, to their psyche, and their ability to grow. So I think one of the issues is having the right people in the profession to do the profession, because it's a calling. So that
Agreed.
I fundamentally believe that, right? Now, it doesn't mean that let's get rid of all the others, because it's not constitutional and other things, and there's unions and rights, etc. So what do we do to deal with that? And my ideas are the following. In the future that we spoke about earlier, I see there being a class assistance that's very fluent in Sesotho, in Sezulu, in Xhosa, teaching kids language, teaching kids maths, teaching kids data science, teaching kids all these competency, and that person will not be a human being. I believe that the person that will do teaching, because why? All the reasons I've mentioned about human flaws, human issues, if the
So the
trajectory
emotion
of
is out
society
because
is
of it,
good,
yeah.
then that means the direction of travel will say, these are the things that have historically hindered progress. So let's remove these and replace them with something that is more neutral.
What do
that
you think
doesn't
is
have
the time
biases.
frame?
Look, when I say the future, I mean it's a long time, but let me come back closer.
sure.
Yeah. So to come back closer, I think a few things need to happen, right? I think number one, we need to have a mindset of winning. And when I say winning,
I agree.
you want to be number one in whatever it is you do. Right, like I'm a very
I
competitive
agree,
person.
man.
Right? Like
I
I think
agree.
you guys do sports.
Yeah.
You watch rugby. You
No,
watch
we all
the box.
then
Punisher,
we've
All
got
Blacks,
3
you go,
competitors
yay,
here.
Right. So in any, I like there's a book called No Rules by a guy called Reed Hastings. He's the founder of Netflix. He co-authored this lady called Erin Mayer. He said that when they hire their teams, they don't treat their colleagues as family members. They treat them as professional athletes. A professional athlete is disciplined about waking up, knowing their skill, knowing their talent, understanding their weaknesses, being coachable. Now, being coachable requires a certain level of humility.
Yeah.
In
Sure.
education, kids that listen, that understand, that are coachable or teachable need to show up with a certain attitude. And that attitude, in my mind, a lot of it starts with home, with grooming, parents, values, things that parents teach children so that they can show up in a classroom being coachable or teachable and respect the person that is giving the instruction, but also confident enough to challenge and ask probing questions without that thing retaliating in a way that says, you're a child, you don't know nothing.
Yeah.
Got
Shut
you.
up.
Yeah.
Got
So
you.
the human being involved,
Yeah.
it deals with those human issues, but we have humans. How do we manage that? Find a way to coach teachers to literally induct them into the education profession work. There are many bodies, professionals, associations, and civil service organizations that can say, we see these issues in the education sector. This person is an expert in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. These teachers have issues that they haven't dealt with. Let's take them through a program. We'll assign them therapists, maybe group therapists, and they'll deal with the human issue so that when the teacher shows up in class, that teacher doesn't bring their baggage, their trauma, and hurt a child.
And
That's a problem.
And for
can
that
be
to
dealt
happen in our country, it's if I can just think of the restructuring of whatever you're talking about, because it makes sense.
It needs well.
Listen, on the performance side, that's how we run our companies.
Yeah.
It's literally that's a first principle for me, almost that you go towards, almost with the education side of what Barack Obama said.
Yeah.
So it's we don't talk on a topic if we did not, educate ourselves in some hours of it. I'll rather say, listen, I don't know anything about this. I'm not going to talk about this.
Yeah.
I can say my opinion about what I think, but if we start talking about AI models and all of that stuff, I'm going to tell you, okay, let me first go educate myself a little bit, and then we can talk about it. But for me, it's a thing of, and that's why I say, and I love it when you said the winning mindset.
Yeah.
Because that's something we don't have. I said that, listen, and this is
As
for
a
me,
country,
as a country,
At least we beat the All Blacks, right?
we beat the All Blacks.
The rugby world champions.
Listen, and that was a proper
The
game.
athletics didn't go so well.
No, that was a
Let's not
proper
talk
game.
about Fana.
But for me, and I'll use this example. The first time I put my foot in the United States soil, the janitor that was cleaning, the sidewalk, were busy there out. It was the hotels outside, and it was a little bit wet, and I walked past there. And the amount of confidence he told me not to walk there. I need to check because he's busy cleaning. Just the authority, not the authority maybe, that's maybe the wrong word, but the surety he spoke out of was, I stood there, I'm like, yes, I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
From this oak telling me he knew, that's his spot, he's cleaning there, don't walk here, just walk there. And it wasn't out of a, listen, I'm looking down on you, this is just, he's walking there, this is what I know this is my cleaning side, that shook me, because we don't have that.
Yeah.
We don't have that, and that's, listen, the States is always the big dreamers. They believe everything's possible, the American dream, all of that.
The center of the world,
but
and the
they
universe.
created that. That's a mindset that was created, that anything is possible. Anything is possible if the American dream, America sold the American dream to every single individual, to the Indians.
They've got great PR. Hollywood is one of their biggest PR machines.
You get my point. So they sold that American dream to everybody, to Europe. That was what they sold. And they attracted a lot of people trying to make the American dream there.
Yeah.
But that's almost like, that's something like the winning mindset. That's one thing for me. If we can just establish the winning mindset, the humility to learn, only those two for me would make a huge difference.
Yeah.
If our country get together in the sense of our president from the top obviously down, starting to implement this, and I don't say programs or whatever they want to put in place for us as a nation to say, this is what we're working towards for the next 20 years. This is where we understand this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
But let's as a nation, and then obviously there should be a lot of things assisting us as a nation. And like labor laws, you touched on unions. That's blocking some of those stuff.
Yeah.
Our tax laws is blocking that. It's blocking foreign investment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that
It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking because our country's not set up for the South African dream or the African dream, because it's going to happen.
Do you agree with this though? Because there's a lot going on.
This is opinion. This is DáNiel Nel's opinion.
Yeah.
It's not to say that I want to force.
DáNiel, I think I hear you.
I don't want to force something.
No. But that's what I'm saying. So sorry. I hope that's not an unfair question, because I don't expect you to agree with everything.
I've got a view, but I'll contribute. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So maybe I think if you could share your thoughts on that, because I think there's a lot going on there, and I certainly think there's a lot of valuable sort of stuff there to actually unpack, right?
Yeah.
And specifically alluding towards foreign investment, right?
Yeah. So let's go back to the land of the free, America, right? America's success today is as a result of immigration. America is successful today because many people from different diverse countries
Came to
went there and applied their trade because the PR brought them there, the money brought them there, and all the things that make them successful, right? So they've done a great job in that regard. And by the way, America itself obviously is made up of people that escaped a particular regime. They were part of the UK, they were part of
Rebels.
all these different. So they set up something that they believed this is the best part of who we are.
Yeah.
And let's make it the dream that we aspire for, knowing what bad looks like where we come from, right?
Yeah.
What I do admire about the Americans, to your janitor, they are very patriotic.
Yes.
If you look at their cars, you look at their bumper sticker. I mean, like you, I was in the States a while back, been to New York, Washington, San Fran, like a few cities I've been to in the States. You see how proud Americans are of their country because of its dominance, because of its winning mentality, because of what it's done for its people. Obviously, you've got issues here and there of racism and
Yeah.
police brutality. No country's perfect, including this one.
Yeah.
But American people, you sooner to find people sitting like this, one of them will at least have a lapel with a flag.
Yeah.
None of us are wearing a flag.
South
right?
African, yeah.
And my view on why that's the case is because since 94, actually, when 94 happened, a promise was made to this country's people, and that promise wasn't entirely kept. When we spoke about trust and relationship building a while back, when you've got an issue where trust is betrayed, you create resentment. Our country defeated the apartheid system using violence, unfortunately, in some respects. But you see a lot of that violence happening in Cape Town with the taxi drivers. You see it happening with the protests that are so violent. I think our people have seen how violence was used to topple a regime that was oppressive. They're using that violence to express unhappiness to
I get you.
a regime that's supposed to represent them. So how can I, with this regime that hasn't kept its promise, that's not, look, people look like me that are running it, but they don't have my best interests.
I get
So
you.
why would I be proud of that? Number one. And number two, Nelson Mandela speaks about sports as a unifying thing. We see it with the Bucks. They won world
No, that's
champions.
it.
Banyana did us so
Definitely.
proud in New Zealand, Australia with the World Cup and what they did to show the boys how it's done. So there's a lot of things that we can be proud of in other anecdote, but if you look at it holistically, we talk about weighted average, different categories of what makes a country run. If you weight that average and then you say the output is X, is that X something that I'm proud of? Today, I can't say I'm entirely proud of it, but you know what? I've got skills, I've got ideas, I've got things that I can contribute to certain aspects of components of this weighted average that can help at least improve the weighted average.
I
So
get
am I proud of this country and our progress we made? In some respects, yes, absolutely. I wouldn't be here without BEE, for example. Many black businesses wouldn't succeed without BEE. But can we do better? We should. We know better. And this may sound a bit controversial, but I don't blame our current leaders in some respects for doing what they are doing because their background, their history, where they come from, they just don't know better, right? So they can't do better. So there's a condition there that affects them that ultimately feeds into the nation and saying, we are corrupt, we don't deserve to be in BRICS. We like, the village cousin of all these sort of global bodies and associations. It's like, it's disappointing, but there's an element of self-hate.
I get you.
And disappointment and things that make us feel less than. When I went to the UK, I've lived there a few times, but when I went there, you find people that are like, we didn't know that a South African can head up a whole business unit in a big international institution. Wow, there's a South African there. And you see big institutions that are headed up by South Africans. It's like, really? South Africans do that? Amidst all this, scumbaggery happening here? So I think our nation has a lot of healing to do and reconciliation that needs to be done of what we are capable of. And it'll take certain individuals to push that and a certain level of patience we need to have. I say, I'm a Christian, I have Christian values, you have to forgive. There's things that we need to do. But in forgiveness, you can't do it and not do actions.
Anything, yeah.
You have to
The actions
forgive.
need to follow.
But actions speak louder than words. You gotta do things that show that, you know what, there's what's this thing? Meeting of minds. And I gotta step to meet you. I can't just say, I wanna meet you, osmosis.